Uh, so, conformity. Conforming to things can be a good thing. It can also be a terrible, unforgivable thing. Um, it's really hard to forgive the evils of conformity when they are so egregious and very unforgivable. Like the things we do in the name of conformity, you can immediately list any number of examples that of conformity being a terrible thing. But it always seems to me that it's always seems to be a negative influence on people. Conformity, obviously, for reasons of survival, has adapted into human social behavior because unity equals strength. But that unity can be used for terrible, nefarious deeds. I don't even have to list the number of terrible things have been committed by a group of people. Whereas a single man going out and causing misdeeds can be result in tragedy. Getting a group of people, that's when it becomes something else entirely. And we really need to, as individuals, judge the ideas presented forth as a means to conform based on the likelihood of them being negatively used. What can be said about that? Like, conformity has been integral in the human species up until this point, where now we can safely voice our dissenting opinions from each other in many societies. Not all societies, but many societies. And even groups today are still terrified of dissenting from the groupthink. I genuinely believe that if we're allowed to discuss things, people tend to choose the best way, or at least claim that they do. Is it out of fear of conformity? Is it out of fear of exclusion that people try to be good? Or is it because they genuinely are good people, is a question I've been asking myself. What is the difference between, like, say, a religious person commits a good deed because they feel like they're going to be rewarded in heaven, compared to a person who's not religious, who just does good things with no thought of any sort of reward, or even attempts to gain any sort of social benefit from publicizing such a deed. It's really, you see the differences in different people, and then there are people like Donald Trump who have never done anything. Like, that's the thing. When good people do good things on their own without any sense of trying to make gain, like I said, social benefit from it, you never hear about it. But then you see people who only do things for the social benefit, and never because they are genuinely good people. I see a lot of, and it's hard to believe, because the internet, you can now, well, like, any time and forever, you can just, someone else can say something and it's not necessarily going to be true because they heard it from someone else, and it might or might not be true. So there's no real way to judge the intentions of someone at all. So automatically, this is something I personally need to work on myself, automatically assuming they have negative intentions is the superfluous, is that a good word? Is a just not a good idea. Like, but then again, automatically assuming that they have good intentions too is equally fruitless. It's something that really it's the craziness of the human experience, I guess. I think people genuinely try to feel like themselves as good people, but then they justify, like everything comes back to, we can each individually justify horrible things to believe about one another and do to one another, or we can try to see each other as part of an individual who has different experience, but we're all facing the same struggles, and maybe not projecting our own, like, maybe our own sorts of what is the word, privileges on others. Like, say someone stealing food, of course anyone can see how stealing food is important. If you're starving, that's not difficult to empathize with, but stealing maybe someone else's TV, which they can sell and then get food, it's just riskier. I don't know. See, it's really tough to make judgment calls, and you really got to take into account the entire person, which we aren't always able to do. That's why Donald Trump is a horrific man. He has a history, very well publicized history, of the terrible things he has done to others. And the crazy thing is, he hasn't earned his place at all. His father gave him $300 million, and somehow he became president. If he didn't receive that money, if he had to work with the $30,000 or whatever instead of $300 million, he would be just another lunatic on the street. Like, there is nothing, like, without that money, that seeding money, his life would not be anywhere what it is today. Like, he is objectively not a competent person. He doesn't make good calls. He is capable of following the crowd, very particular crowd, but that's all he is capable of doing. He's not able to do things that he's not able to choose the right thing for the right reasons. He's physically and mentally incapable of doing the right thing for the right reasons. He does it entirely for the showmanship, which is entirely the persona he chose to feed. He has always, like, and that's the one he's been the most successful in. He got his TV show where it's just being cruel to people, and he gets pleasure from firing people. Like, it's really gross. And he's brought it all the way to the White House, which is insane. And here I am talking about him, a shadow of a man who has done nothing for me or anyone that I care about. So look who's actually winning, I guess. We need Bernie Sanders. We need Bernie Sanders. Vote Bernie 2020. You can do it. This country needs it. Thank you.